Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock fighting thugs in a dark alley. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock were walking through the dimly lit streets of downtown after a late-night charity event. The city was quiet, with only the distant hum of traffic and flickering neon signs casting eerie glows on the wet pavement. As they turned a corner into a narrow alley, a group of menacing thugs emerged from the shadows blocking their path. Well, look who we have here," sneered the leader, a burly man with a scar across his cheek. "Hollywood stars walking right into our turf." Keanu glanced at Sandra, who raised an eyebrow, her body tensing slightly. "We don't want trouble," Keanu said calmly, "but trouble wants you." Another thug chuckled, pulling out a switchblade. The others followed, cracking their knuckles and brandishing metal pipes. Keanu sighed. "Guess we have no choice." Before the leader could react, Keanu moved like lightning, disarming the thug with the knife in a swift motion. He twisted the man's wrist, making him yelp in pain before flipping him onto the ground. Sandra, just as quick, ducked under a swing from another thug and delivered a powerful kick to his stomach, sending him crashing into a pile of trash cans. The remaining thugs hesitated for a moment, but their pride pushed them forward. Keanu blocked a punch, countering with an elbow strike to the jaw, knocking one man out cold. Sandra grabbed a nearby wooden plank and swung it hard, hitting another thug across the head. The leader, now furious, pulled out a gun. Keanu's eyes narrowed. With incredible speed, he kicked a nearby metal lid, sending it flying straight into the thug's wrist, making him drop the weapon. Sandra didn't waste a second. She lunged forward, delivering a spinning kick to his face, knocking him unconscious. As the last thug scrambled to his feet and ran away, Keanu dusted off his jacket and looked at Sandra. "Not bad," he said with a smirk. She grinned. "You too." The two walked out of the alley as sirens echoed in the distance, leaving behind the defeated gang. Just another night for Hollywood's finest action duo. As Keanu and Sandra stepped out of the alley, the distant sound of police sirens grew louder. The city never slept, and neither did trouble. Sandra looked over her shoulder at the unconscious thugs. "Think we should stick around?" she asked. Keanu shook his head. "We handled it. Let the cops clean up the mess." Just as they turned onto the main street, a black SUV screeched to a halt beside them. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a man in a sharp suit with cold, calculating eyes. "Impressive," he said with a slow clap. "I didn't expect two movie stars to take down my men so easily." Sandra crossed her arms. "Let me guess, they work for you?" The man smirked. "They did, but I don't tolerate failure. I handle things myself." In a blur, the back doors of the SUV burst open, and more men in tactical gear jumped out, armed with batons and stun guns. Keanu and Sandra barely had a moment to react before the first attacker lunged. Keanu dodged, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting it behind his back before sending him crashing to the pavement. Sandra ducked under a baton swing, countering with a precise jab to the attacker's throat. More thugs rushed forward. Keanu moved like a ghost, dodging and striking with effortless precision. Sandra flipped over one attacker, grabbing his head mid-air and slamming him to the ground. The man in the suit sighed, stepping out of the SUV as his men lay groaning on the ground. "You're good," he admitted, clapping his hands together. "But how long can you keep this up?" As if on cue, more black SUVs appeared, surrounding them. Keanu and Sandra exchanged a look. This wasn't over. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Sandra asked, cracking her knuckles. Keanu smirked. "Yeah, time to make this a real action movie." And just like that, the fight was on. As the SUVs encircled them, doors swung open and more enforcers poured out, armed with tasers, batons, and handguns. The city lights flickered off their black tactical gear, making them look like ghosts in the night. Keanu took a deep breath, rolling his shoulders. "All right, this just got interesting." Sandra smirked. "Think we can take them?" Keanu eyed the sheer number of attackers. "We don't have to. We just need to get out of here in one piece." The man in the suit gave a smug grin. "Surrender now, and I'll consider letting you leave with all your bones intact." Sandra scoffed. "Yeah, that's not happening." Without warning, Keanu kicked a nearby trash can, sending it rolling towards the nearest attacker, tripping him up. At the same time, Sandra spun, grabbing a loose pipe from the alley floor and using it to block a baton strike before countering with a sharp elbow to the gut. Chaos erupted. Keanu weaved through the attackers, disarming one of his gun and using it to knock out another before tossing it aside. Sandra ducked low, sweeping the legs of two thugs before launching herself into a perfect roundhouse kick, sending a third flying. Gunfire erupted, but Keanu and Sandra moved like trained warriors, dodging and countering every attack with brutal efficiency. Then, Sandra spotted an opening. "There!" she shouted, pointing to a fire escape ladder. Keanu nodded. "Cover me!" She went on the offensive, smashing a thug in the face with the pipe as Keanu leaped onto a car hood and propelled himself upward, grabbing the bottom rung of the ladder. He climbed fast, reaching down to offer Sandra a hand. She grabbed it just in time, as more attackers swarmed below. The man in the suit clenched his jaw. "Shoot them!" Bullets whizzed past as Keanu and Sandra raced up the fire escape, the metal groaning under their speed. At the rooftop, they sprinted across the edge, jumping between buildings as their pursuers scrambled to keep up. Sandra glanced at Keanu. "I hope you have a plan." Keanu smirked. "Yeah, don't get caught." Below, the man in the suit watched them disappear into the night, his eyes cold with fury. "This isn't over," he muttered, pulling out his phone. "Activate the next phase." Somewhere in the city, another group of hunters was already moving into position. The chase was far from over. Keanu and Sandra sprinted across the rooftops, their breath steady despite the adrenaline pumping through their veins. Below, the city pulsed with life, unaware of the deadly game unfolding above. Suddenly, a helicopter's spotlight cut through the darkness, locking onto them. The deep thrum of its rotor blades echoed through the night. A voice crackled through a loudspeaker. "There's nowhere left to run." Keanu and Sandra skidded to a halt on the edge of a rooftop. Behind them, more armed enforcers emerged, blocking their escape. In front of them, a dizzying drop to the streets below. The man in the suit stepped out from the shadows, adjusting his cuffs. "I admire your persistence," he said, his tone calm, "but this is the end of the road." Sandra exhaled, glancing at Keanu. "Got a plan, or are we just winging it?" Keanu smirked. "A little of both." Without warning, Keanu grabbed Sandra's hand and ran straight for the edge of the building. "Are you serious?" she shouted. "Trust me." As bullets zipped past them, Keanu and Sandra jumped. For a second, they were weightless, suspended in the air as the city lights flashed around them. Then, crash! They landed on a rooftop awning, rolling off and landing onto the street below in perfect sync. Disoriented but unharmed, Sandra looked at Keanu and grinned. "That was insane." Keanu shrugged. "Worked, didn't it?" Before the enforcers could react, the sound of police sirens filled the air. The man in the suit's expression darkened as flashing red and blue lights flooded the street. A convoy of SWAT vehicles screeched to a stop, and officers poured out, guns drawn. "Drop your weapons!" The enforcers hesitated, looking to their boss for guidance. The man in the suit clenched his fists, then slowly raised his hands in surrender. The SWAT team swiftly moved in, cuffing him and his remaining men. Sandra dusted herself off as a detective approached. "We got an anonymous tip about a criminal syndicate operating in the city. Looks like we arrived just in time." Keanu gave a small smile. "Yeah, just in time." The detective eyed them. "You two should probably get out of here before the press shows up, unless you want to be on tomorrow's headlines." Sandra laughed. "I think we've had enough action for one night." As they slipped away into the crowd, Keanu glanced at Sandra. "So, dinner?" She smirked. "Only if we don't get ambushed again." Keanu chuckled. "No promises." With that, the two disappeared into the city, leaving behind a night of chaos, action, and just another wild adventure. The legend of Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock lived on.